She thought she'd buried her past 6 years ago when she fled Portland with nothing but a fake ID and a positive pregnancy test. Built a new life, a new name, kept her son safe from the monster she'd married. A mafia boss whose love felt like a beautiful cage. But the past doesn't stay buried when it drives a $250,000 Tesla. When Nikolai Varga stepped out of that car across from her son's school, staring at the boy like he'd found his missing heart, she knew her carefully invisible life was about to shatter, because the king of Portland's underworld had just discovered he was a father. If you're hooked, stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. The rain came down in sheets, turning Powell Boulevard into a river of brake lights and exhaust fumes. Claire Donovan, though that wasn't the name on her birth certificate, gripped her son's hand tighter as they approached the wrought iron gates of Westmont Academy. Even after 3 months, the sight of this place made her stomach clench. Brick buildings that looked like they'd been airlifted from some New England campus. Manicured lawns that probably cost more to maintain than her entire yearly salary. Children in navy blazers who'd never known what it meant to choose between groceries and electricity. "Mom, you're squishing my fingers," Evan said, his voice muffled by the oversized hood of his rain jacket. She loosened her grip but didn't let go. "Sorry, baby. Just don't want you slipping." It was a lie. She never wanted to let go. Not here, not anywhere. Because every time she dropped him off at this school that she couldn't afford, that she shouldn't be able to afford, a cold finger of dread traced down her spine. The anonymous scholarship that had appeared in her mailbox 6 months ago had felt like a miracle. Now it felt like a trap she'd walked into with her eyes wide open. The morning bell hadn't rung yet. Parents clustered under umbrellas, trading gossip about charity galas and vacation homes. Claire kept her head down, aiming for invisibility. It was a skill she'd perfected over 6 years. Don't stand out. Don't make friends. Don't leave a trail anyone could follow back to who you used to be. "There's Mason!" Evan pulled toward a cluster of boys near the flagpole. "Can I go?" She wanted to say no, wanted to bundle him back into their 15-year-old Honda and drive until Portland was a memory in the rearview mirror. But she'd promised herself she wouldn't let her paranoia steal his childhood the way fear had stolen hers. "Stay where I can see you," she said, releasing his hand. He took off at a run, his backpack bouncing against his narrow shoulders. She watched him crash into the group with the fearless enthusiasm of a 6-year-old who didn't yet understand that the world could be cruel. That people could smile while planning your destruction. That love could be the most dangerous cage of all. A black Tesla Model S glided to a stop across the street. Claire's heart stopped. The car sat there, engine purring, windows tinted dark enough to hide whoever sat inside. Rain hammered against its sleek hood. It was just a car. Portland had thousands of them. Wealthy tech workers and venture capitalists who'd priced out everyone who'd actually built this city. There was no reason for the hair on the back of her neck to stand up. No reason for her hands to start shaking. The driver's door opened. Time fractured into before and after. He unfolded from the car with the same controlled grace she remembered from a lifetime ago. Taller than memory suggested, though that might have been the perfectly tailored charcoal suit that made him look like he'd stepped out of a boardroom war council. Dark hair, longer than he used to wear it, swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble by an artist obsessed with sharp edges and brutal beauty. 6 years should have softened him, should have added lines or weight or some sign that time had passed. Nikolai Varga looked like time had given up trying to touch him. He stood beside his car, rain darkening his shoulders, and stared directly at Evan. Not at her, at their son. The world tilted sideways. Claire's vision tunneled, black spots dancing at the edges. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only watch as Nico's expression shifted through shock, recognition, and something that looked devastatingly like grief. He'd found them. After 6 years of running, of hiding, of building a life from lies and forged documents, Nikolai Varga had found his son. Their eyes met across the rain-slicked street. His face went absolutely still, the expression she remembered from board meetings and business negotiations, when he was calculating odds and planning 3 moves ahead. She saw the moment he made his decision, saw it in the slight straightening of his shoulders, the way his hands relaxed at his sides. He wasn't going to make a scene. Not here. not in front of witnesses and security cameras. That somehow made it worse. He raised one hand, not a wave, not a threat, just an acknowledgement that she'd been seen, found, caught. Then he slid back into the Tesla and drove away, disappearing into Portland's morning traffic like a ghost that had decided to postpone its haunting. Claire's legs gave out. She caught herself against the wet iron fence, rain soaking through her jacket as she fought to pull air into her locked chest. Around her, parents continued their mundane conversations, oblivious to the fact that her entire world had just imploded. "Mrs. Donovan, are you all right?" She looked up into the concerned face of Miss Patterson, Evan's homeroom teacher. Young, earnest, the kind of person who'd gone into education because she genuinely wanted to help children. The kind of person who had no idea that monsters wore expensive suits and drove electric cars. "I'm fine." Claire forced herself upright, manufactured a smile. "Just felt dizzy for a second. Low blood sugar." "You should sit down. I can have someone bring you at—" "Really? I'm okay." She glanced toward Evan, still laughing with his friends, untouched by the apocalypse that had just arrived. "I need to get to work anyway." She made herself walk to her car, made herself not run, not look over her shoulder, not grab Evan and disappear into the rain. Because running now wouldn't help. If Nico had found them, he'd been planning this, watching, waiting for the right moment. The question was what he planned to do about it. Her phone buzzed as she started the Honda's reluctant engine. Unknown number, Portland area code. Her finger hovered over the decline button. Then, with the fatalistic certainty of someone who knew the trap had already closed, she answered. "Claire." His voice hadn't changed. Still that low, controlled tone that could discuss violence or poetry with the same measured calm. Or should I say Anna Petrov? Or maybe Catherine Wells? You've used so many names. She closed her eyes. "How long have you known?" "About Evan?" 3 months. A pause. "About where you were hiding? Much longer." 3 months. Since the scholarship letter. She wanted to scream. "What do you want?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. 30 minutes of your time. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from your apartment, Morrison Street. I'll be waiting. And if I don't come, then I'll pick Evan up from school myself this afternoon. No threat in his tone, just simple fact. I have paperwork ready to file for emergency custody, DNA test results, evidence that you've been using forged identity documents, proof that you've denied a father access to his son for 6 years. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You bastard!" 30 minutes, Claire. That's all I'm asking. His voice softened just slightly. "Please." The line went dead. She sat in her car, rain drumming on the roof, and faced the truth she'd been running from. She'd always known this day would come, had spent 6 years preparing for it, planning for it, dreading it. Every time Evan smiled, she saw Nikolai's face. Every time her son showed that stubborn determination, that quiet intensity when he focused on something, she was reminded of the man she'd loved and feared in equal measure. The man she'd run from in the middle of the night, stealing nothing but her freedom and the secret growing in her belly. She started the car and drove toward Morrison Street, not because he'd threatened her, not because she was afraid, though she was, God help her, she was terrified, but because she'd learned something in 6 years of living on the edge. Running only worked until it didn't. And when running failed, you had to face what was chasing you. The coffee shop was exactly the kind of place Nico would choose. Small, quiet, expensive without being ostentatious. Floor-to-ceiling windows that let him see anyone approaching. Corner table that put his back to the wall and gave him a clear view of both exits. He'd already ordered. 2 cappuccinos sat on the table, one in front of his seat, one across from him. Hers was made exactly the way she used to take it. Extra foam, cinnamon, no sugar. He remembered. "You cut your hair," he said, as she slid into the chair across from him. Not an accusation, just an observation. She'd done more than that. Dyed it from black to honey brown, lost the dramatic makeup she used to wear, traded designer clothes for thrift store finds, and the kind of neutral, forgettable style that helped her blend into crowds. She'd erased the woman he married and built someone new from the ashes. But sitting across from him now, she felt like Anna Petrov again, 23 years old and stupid in love with a man who made her feel alive and terrified in the same breath. You look good, she said, because she didn't know what else to say. You look exhausted. He leaned back, studying her with those dark eyes that never missed anything. How long have you been working 2 jobs? Her stomach dropped. You had me investigated. The moment I found you, which was 4 months ago, if we're keeping score. He took a sip of his cappuccino. Legal consultant by day, bartender 3 nights a week. Studio apartment in a building that should have been condemned years ago. You're barely making rent, even with the scholarship covering Evan's tuition. Stop, her voice shook. Stop saying his name like you know him, like you have any right. He's my son. You don't get to just... She cut herself off, aware of the other patrons, the barista watching them with interest. Lowered her voice to a hiss. You don't get to show up after 6 years and claim him like he's a piece of property you misplaced. Is that what you think I'm doing? I don't know what you're doing. That's the problem. She wrapped her hands around the cappuccino, seeking its warmth. You were never supposed to find us. Then you shouldn't have enrolled him in one of the most prestigious private schools in Portland under a name that a basic background check flagged as suspicious. He set down his cup with careful precision. Did you really think I wouldn't have alerts set up? That I stopped looking? I thought... She stopped. What had she thought? That he'd forget? Move on? Find someone else to obsess over? I thought you'd be too angry to care. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or regret. I was never angry, Claire. I was devastated. The word hit her like a physical blow. She'd expected rage, threats, the cold, calculated violence she'd witnessed in their final months together. Not this quiet confession that made her remember why she'd fallen in love with him in the first place. You can't rewrite history, she said. I left for a reason. I know. He reached into his jacket, slowly, letting her see every movement, and pulled out a manila envelope. Set it on the table between them. I'm not here to drag you back into the past. I'm here to discuss the future. She stared at the envelope like it might explode. What is that? Open it. Her hand shook as she unsealed the flap. Inside, a DNA test confirming Evan's paternity. Photographs, dozens of them. Surveillance quality shots of her and Evan over the past months. Walking to school, at the playground, the library. Every image made her skin crawl with the violation of it. But underneath the photos, something unexpected. Therapy intake forms. Sessions dating back 3 years with Dr. Rebecca Marsh, one of Portland's most respected trauma specialists. You've been in therapy? The words came out disbelieving. Every week for the past 3 years, twice a week for the first 18 months. He watched her reaction carefully. I needed to understand why you left, what I'd done, who I'd become. Claire looked up from the paperwork, trying to reconcile this with the man she'd known. Nikolai Varga didn't do therapy. Didn't admit weakness. Didn't change. I don't believe you. Call Dr. Marsh. She's expecting your call, with my permission to discuss my treatment. He slid a business card across the table. I'm not asking you to trust me, Claire. I know I haven't earned that, but I am asking you to verify that I'm telling the truth. She picked up the card, turned it over in her fingers. This felt like a trap. Had to be a trap. Men like Nikolai didn't change. They just got better at hiding what they were. Why? She asked. Why go through all this? You could have just filed for custody like you threatened. Used your lawyers and your money and your connections to bury me. Because I don't want to bury you. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to that intimate tone she remembered from late nights and whispered confessions. I want to be a father to our son. A real one. Not a name on a custody agreement or a check in the mail. And I want... He stopped, seeming to choose his words carefully. I want the chance to prove that the man you ran from isn't the man I am now. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was worse than threats. Worse than legal intimidation. Because part of her, the part that had loved him enough to marry him, to ignore the red flags and the warning signs, wanted to believe him. What exactly are you proposing? He pulled out another document. This one was stapled, official looking, a contract. 4 months, he said. Trial cohabitation in a neutral space. Not my penthouse. I know that would feel like a cage. I've leased a house in the West Hills. 4 bedrooms, yard for Evan, Separate spaces for privacy. You and Evan move in. We establish routines, family dinners, shared parenting. I get to know my son, and he gets to know me. You're insane. I'm desperate. The raw honesty in his voice stopped her. I've missed 6 years, Claire. First steps, first words, every milestone, every nightmare, every moment of joy. I wasn't there. I can't get that back. But I can be there for what comes next, if you let me. She scanned the contract looking for the trap. There had to be a trap. Weekly family therapy sessions, she read aloud. Individual therapy for both of us. Gradual introduction. Evan meets you as mom's friend first. No discussion of our past relationship or your business activities. My legitimate business activities, he corrected. I'm out of the family business. Sold my interest 2 years ago. I run a tech investment firm now. Clean money, legal contracts, boring board meetings. She looked up sharply. You left the Varga organization? I burned it to the ground. Something cold flickered in his eyes. After you left, I realized you were right about everything, so I dismantled it, turned evidence over to the FBI, watched my uncle and 3 cousins go to prison, started over. The room spun. The Nikolai she'd known would have died before betraying his family. The organization had been everything to him: legacy, identity, power. You're lying. Google me. He pulled out his phone, set it on the table. It made national news. Portland crime family crumbles after heir turns informant. I was in witness protection for 18 months. The only reason I'm using my real name now is because everyone who wanted me dead is either in prison or no longer a threat. She did search his name, found the articles immediately. Federal raids, indictments. A grainy photo of Nikolai in a suit, leaving a courthouse surrounded by federal agents. The dates lined up. 3 years ago. Right around the time he'd started therapy. Why? Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Why would you destroy everything? Because you left me a note. He said it so simply. 8 words. I can't raise a child in your darkness. I read that note every day for a month, and then I started making calls. Tears burned her eyes. She'd written that note in a hotel room at 2 a.m., hands shaking, morning sickness making her dizzy. Had agonized over every word. Never thought he'd actually read it, never imagined it would matter. I didn't know I was pregnant when I wrote that, she admitted. I found out 2 days later. His jaw tightened. Would you have told me, if you'd known? I don't know. Honest, at least. I wanted to. God, Nico, I wanted to so badly, but I was terrified of what you'd become, what our child would think was normal. And now? She looked at the contract again, at the therapy schedules and the carefully outlined boundaries, at the section that outlined her rights, maintained legal custody, veto power over major decisions, ability to terminate the arrangement at any time. This is really just about getting to know Evan? And you? He met her eyes. I'm not going to pretend I don't still have feelings for you, Claire, but I'm also not stupid enough to think we can pick up where we left off. Too much has happened, too much damage, but maybe if we're both willing to do the work, we can build something new, as parents, as partners in raising our son. And if something more develops naturally, he trailed off. That's what the therapy is for, to make sure we're doing this right. She wanted to say no, wanted to grab Evan and run again, but she was so tired of running, tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of lying to her son about why he didn't have a father. And despite everything, despite 6 years of deliberate distance, she could see the changes in Nikolai. The way he held himself differently, still controlled but less coiled. The openness in his expression that used to be shuttered behind cold calculation. The fact that he'd brought a contract instead of a threat. I need to talk to a lawyer, she said. Go over this contract independently. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. He slid another card across the table. Marissa Chen, family law specialist. I've already paid her retainer. She'll review the contract with you, explain your rights, and advise you on any changes you want to make. You paid my lawyer? I want this to be fair, Claire. I want you to feel protected. If that means hiring someone whose job is to advocate against my interests, so be it. She studied him across the table. This man who'd been her husband and her nightmare and now claimed to be something else entirely, something better. I'll read the contract, she said finally. Meet with the lawyer. Think about it. That's all I'm asking. She stood to leave, then paused. Nico, if I agree to this, if we do this trial period, what happens at the end of 4 months? His expression softened. Then we sit down with Dr. Marsh and decide what's best for Evan. Maybe we continue living together. Maybe we establish a custody arrangement. Maybe you decide you want nothing to do with me and we work out visitation. But whatever we choose, it's a choice we make together as parents. No courts, no lawyers, no forcing anyone into anything they don't want. And if I say no right now, if I take Evan and disappear again? The warmth left his face. Not anger, something sadder. Then I file for custody and we let judges decide what our son's life looks like. I don't want that, Claire. I think it would be traumatic for Evan and devastating for both of us. But I'm not going to pretend I'll just walk away. I found my son. I'm not losing him again. At least he was honest. She left the coffee shop and sat in her car for 20 minutes, staring at the contract without really seeing it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Westmont Academy's automated system confirming Evan's attendance, safe at school, learning long division and state capitals, completely unaware that his entire world was about to change, if she let it. Claire started the car and drove to her day job, a small legal consulting firm that paid her under the table and didn't ask too many questions about her credentials. She was good at her job, had a degree from Columbia, even if it had a different name on it now. But she'd never been able to work at a prestigious firm, never been able to build the career she'd once dreamed of, because legitimate jobs required legitimate backgrounds. Her boss, Marcus, looked up as she entered. "You look like hell." "Thanks, Marcus. Always know how to make a girl feel special." "Seriously, Claire. What's wrong?" She wanted to tell him. Marcus was the closest thing she had to a friend in this city. A 50-year-old former public defender who'd burned out and started his own practice handling small cases for people the system forgot. But how could she explain that her ex-husband had found her, that he knew about Evan, that he was offering her a chance at the life she'd always wanted and she was terrified to take it? "Just a rough morning," she said instead. "I'll be fine." She wasn't fine. She worked through lunch, through the afternoon, barely processing the case files in front of her. At 3 o'clock, she left to pick up Evan from school, half expecting to find Nico's Tesla waiting. But the street was clear. Just normal parents in normal cars living normal lives. Evan bounded out, backpack flying, talking a mile a minute about a science experiment involving vinegar and baking soda. She let his chatter wash over her, memorizing the sound of his voice, the way his eyes lit up when he was excited. Her son. Her entire world. The reason she'd run, the reason she'd hidden, the reason she got up every morning and kept fighting. The question was whether she was protecting him or hurting him by keeping him from his father. That night, after Evan was asleep, she read the contract. Read it 3 times, making notes, highlighting sections, looking for the trap that had to be there. But the terms were straightforward, generous even. She'd maintain primary legal custody. Nico would have no access to Evan without her present for the first month. She could terminate the agreement at any time with 2 weeks' notice. Financial support was outlined clearly. He'd cover housing, food, Evan's education, and a salary for her so she could quit her night job, but with no strings attached. If she left, the money for Evan's education continued. It was too good to be true, which meant it was probably a trap. But what if it wasn't? She called Marissa Chen the next morning. The lawyer was sharp, thorough, and refreshingly blunt. "I'll be honest with you, Ms. Donovan," Chen said. "This is the most favorable cohabitation agreement I've ever seen from a non-custodial parent's perspective. Mr. Varga has given you every protection, every out, every safeguard I would have demanded myself. Either he's playing a very long game, or he's genuinely trying to do right by you. Which do you think it is?" "I think," Chen paused, "I think he's a man who's lost a lot and is trying very hard not to lose anything else. That doesn't mean you should trust him, but it might mean you should give him a chance to earn that trust." Claire spent the next week investigating, called Dr. Marsh, who confirmed Nico's therapy sessions, 3 years of intensive work on anger management, trauma processing, and relationship patterns. Googled the federal case against the Varga organization, reading through court documents and news articles until her eyes burned. talked to a private investigator who confirmed that Nikolai Varga was now exactly what he claimed, a legitimate businessman with no active criminal connections. He'd really done it, blown up his entire world, started over. For her? For Evan? For himself. Maybe it didn't matter why. Maybe what mattered was that he'd changed, or at least he was trying to. On Friday evening, a week after that first coffee shop meeting, she called him. "I talked to the lawyer," she said when he answered. "And?" She took a deep breath. "I want to meet the house, see where we'd be living, and I want to establish some ground rules beyond what's in the contract. Name them. Evan doesn't meet you as his father until doctor." Marsh agrees he's ready for that conversation. "We start slow. Your mom's friend who's helping us out, nothing more." "Agreed. No gifts, no trying to buy his affection, and no discussions about your past or my reasons for leaving anywhere he might overhear." "Of course." "And Nico?" Her voice hardened. "If I see even a hint of the man you used to be, if you lose your temper, if you try to control me, if you make me feel for 1 second like I'm trapped, I'm gone. Evan and I disappear, and this time you won't find us." Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "Fair enough. When can I see the house?" "Tomorrow morning? I'll text you the address. Come alone first if that makes you more comfortable. See the space without Evan. Make sure it feels safe." She ended the call and sat in the dark of her tiny apartment, listening to Evan's soft breathing from his bed across the room. They shared this studio, 395 square feet of peeling paint and temperamental heating, because it was all she could afford. She told herself it was enough, that safety mattered more than space, that love mattered more than luxury. But what if she could give her son both? The house in the West Hills was beautiful, not ostentatious. Nico had learned something about her taste over the years, but solid, craftsman style, probably built in the 1920s, with original hardwood floors and built-in bookshelves. The kind of place she used to dream about when she was a kid growing up in foster care, imagining what a real home might look like. Nico gave her a tour without commentary. Let the house speak for itself. 4 bedrooms, 1 clearly meant for Evan, with empty shelves waiting for books and toys. 1 for her, with an ensuite bathroom and a reading nook by the window. 1 for Nico, at the opposite end of the hall. And 1 set up as an office, with a desk and filing cabinets and a door that locked. "For your work," he explained. "If you want to continue consulting, or if you want to study for the bar exam, whatever you need." She'd never told him she wanted to take the bar, but of course he knew. He'd always known her better than she wanted to admit. The kitchen was the kind food magazines photographed. The backyard had a swing set already installed. The basement had been converted into a family room with comfortable furniture and a TV that wasn't top-of-the-line flashy, just good quality. It was perfect. It was terrifying. "What do you think?" Nico asked as they stood in the backyard, watching gray clouds promise more rain. "I think you're making this very hard to say no to." "Good." He smiled, and for a moment she saw the man she'd fallen in love with. Not the cold boss who'd terrified her, but the one who'd brought her coffee in the morning and listened to her rant about legal theory for hours. The one who'd made her laugh and made her feel seen. "I need one more thing," she said. "Name it." "I need you to tell me the truth, not the version in the contract, or the therapy speak, or what you think I want to hear." She turned to face him fully. "Why are you really doing this? And don't tell me it's just about Evan. You could have negotiated visitation, built a relationship gradually. Why cohabitation? Why this?" He was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching hers. "Because I've spent 6 years living half a life," he said finally. "I burned down everything I built, started over, became the kind of man I should have been from the beginning. But every success felt hollow, because the 2 people who mattered most weren't there to share it." He stepped closer, but didn't reach for her. "I'm doing this because I want my family back. Not the broken, toxic version we were before. A real family, built on honesty and respect and actual choice. And if that means spending 4 months proving I deserve that chance, then that's what I'll do. And if at the end of 4 months I still can't trust you?" Pain flashed across his face. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life earning it through the best co-parenting arrangement we can build. Because walking away isn't an option anymore, Claire. Not when I know my son exists, not when I know what I lost." She should have been afraid of that intensity, should have recognized it as the obsession that had driven her away. But standing in this perfect house, looking at this changed man, she felt something else. Hope. Dangerous, terrifying hope. "I need to tell Evan something," she said, "before we move in. He's been asking about his father." "Well, what have you told him?" "That his daddy loved him very much but couldn't be with us. That it wasn't Evan's fault." She blinked back tears. "I never wanted him to think he wasn't wanted." Nico's composure cracked. He turned away, but not before she saw the devastation in his expression. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Can I ask you something? Just one thing, and then I'll never bring it up again." "Okay. When you found out you were pregnant, before you decided I was too dangerous to tell, was there a moment when you were happy, when you thought about us raising him together?" The question broke something open in her chest. "Yes." "How long? How long did you let yourself imagine that future before fear took over?" She remembered standing in that hotel bathroom, staring at 2 pink lines and feeling joy so overwhelming it made her dizzy. Remembered calling Nico's number 3 times before hanging up, imagining his reaction. Imagining him as a father. 48 hours, she whispered. "I was happy for 48 hours. And then I remembered the blood on your shirt from the Kozlov negotiation, the gun in your desk drawer, the way you looked at me sometimes like I was a possession you'd acquired. And I knew I couldn't do it." He nodded slowly, still not facing her. "Thank you for telling me the truth." They stood in silence, the weight of 6 lost years pressing down on both of them. Finally, Nico turned back, his mask of control firmly in place again. "Talk to Evan," he said. "Tell him whatever you're comfortable with. When you're ready to move in, let me know. I'll have movers handle everything. You won't have to lift a finger." Claire left the house and drove back to her apartment, her mind spinning. That night she sat Evan down after dinner. "Baby, I need to talk to you about something important." He looked up from his coloring book, his dark eyes, Nico's eyes, solemn. "Are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart, nothing like that." She took his small hands in hers. "Remember how you've been asking about your daddy?" His whole face lit up. "Did you find him? Is he coming to visit?" "Not exactly, but I did find him, and he wants to meet you. He's been looking for us for a long time." "Why didn't he find us before?" "How did you explain this to a 6-year-old? How did you balance truth and protection?" "It's complicated, baby. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. I made some choices that kept us apart, and I thought I was protecting you, but..." She swallowed hard. "Your daddy is a good man who made some bad choices before you were born. And he's worked very hard to be better, to be the kind of daddy you deserve." "Is he nice?" "He can be very nice, but we need to get to know him slowly, okay? We're going to move to a new house where we'll all live together for a little while. You'll get your own room and a backyard to play in." Evan's eyes went wide. "A real house with a yard?" "A real house. And your daddy, well, we're going to call him Nico for now. He'll be there too. But I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If anything ever makes you uncomfortable, if you're scared or confused or you don't like something, you tell me right away. No matter what. Can you promise me that?" He nodded seriously. "I promise, Mommy." She pulled him into her arms, breathing in the scent of his strawberry shampoo, and prayed she was making the right choice. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning that dawned clear and bright, rare for Portland in November, they moved into the house on the West Hills. Evan ran through the rooms with unbridled joy, claiming his bedroom, marveling at the swing set, already making plans for where his toys would go. Nikolai arrived at noon, holding a single grocery bag. "Just lunch supplies," he said when Claire raised an eyebrow. "I thought we could make sandwiches together, if that's okay." He looked nervous. Nikolai Varga, who used to stare down armed men without flinching, looked genuinely nervous about making lunch with a 6-year-old. "Evan," she called, "come meet Nico." Her son barreled into the kitchen and stopped short, staring up at the tall man who stared back with barely contained emotion. "Hi," Evan said shyly. "Are you my mom's friend?" "I am." Nico crouched down to Evan's level, making himself smaller, less intimidating. "It's very nice to meet you, Evan. Your mom has told me a lot about you." "She says you're going to live here too." "That's right. Is that okay with you?" Evan considered this seriously. Do you like dinosaurs? A smile broke across Nico's face. Genuine, warm, transforming. I love dinosaurs. Do you have a favorite? Velociraptor. They're super smart and they hunt in packs. Clever choice. I always liked the T-Rex myself, but velociraptors are definitely cooler. Just like that, they were talking about dinosaurs and school and whether chocolate chip or oatmeal raisin cookies were better. Claire watched from the doorway as her past and her present collided, as the two people who mattered most in the world met for the first time. And despite every instinct screaming at her to grab Evan and run, despite the fear coiled in her chest, she felt something else rising alongside it. Hope that maybe, just maybe, they could build something good from the ruins of what they'd been. Hope that Nikolai really had changed. Hope that her son might finally get the father he deserved. It was the most terrifying thing she'd ever felt. But as she watched Nico laugh at something Evan said, watched her son's face light up with joy, she thought maybe, just maybe, hope was worth the risk. The first week felt like walking on glass. Every interaction was careful, measured, weighted with the unspoken history that hung between them like fog. Claire watched Nikolai with Evan the way a bodyguard watches a crowd, alert for any sign of danger, any hint that the mask would slip and reveal the man she'd run from. But the mask never slipped. If anything, Nico seemed almost too careful. He asked permission before suggesting activities, deferred to her on every decision about Evan's routine, kept his distance, both physical and emotional, in a way that felt deliberate, controlled. You don't have to ask me if you can take him to the park, she said on the fourth day, watching Nico hover in the kitchen doorway like a guest in his own house. I want to respect your boundaries. I appreciate that, but you're allowed to be a parent here. That's the whole point. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe, or hope. Then, yes, I'd like to take Evan to the park. There's one 3 blocks away with a really good playground. Can I come? The words surprised her even as she said them. I'd like that. So the 3 of them walked to the park on a crisp November afternoon, Evan running ahead to chase falling leaves, and it felt almost normal, almost like a real family, doing real family things. Nico pushed Evan on the swings, his expensive watch catching the light as he sent their son soaring higher, and Claire felt something crack open in her chest. This was what she'd imagined during those 48 hours. This exact scene before fear had poisoned it. Higher! Evan shrieked with laughter. Push me higher! Any higher and you'll reach orbit, Nico called back, but he pushed harder anyway. Claire pulled out her phone and took a picture before she could stop herself. Captured the moment. Her son's joy, Nico's smile, the golden light filtering through bare branches. Evidence that this was real. That maybe they could actually do this. That night, Evan fell asleep almost as soon as his head hit the pillow, exhausted from running and playing. Claire tucked him in and found Nico in the kitchen, cleaning up from dinner. You don't have to do that, she said. I can handle dishes. So can I. He didn't look up from the sink. I'm not helpless, Claire. I've been living alone for years. She leaned against the counter, studying him. He changed into jeans and a simple t-shirt after work, and without the armor of his suits, he looked younger, more like the man she'd married. This is weird, she said. What is? This, us, playing house. She gestured around the kitchen, acting like we're a normal family when we're anything but. He dried his hands carefully before turning to face her. What would make it feel less weird? I don't know. Maybe if we actually talked about the elephant in the room instead of tiptoeing around it. Which elephant? We've got several. Despite herself, she almost smiled. All of them. Why you really left the organization? What happened after I ran? How you found us? She paused. What you actually want from this arrangement? Nico pulled out one of the kitchen chairs and sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. That's a lot of elephants for one evening. We've got time. She sat across from him, the table a safe distance between them. Evan's out cold for the night. He was quiet for a long moment, his hands folded on the table in front of him. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and controlled. After you left, I spent the first month tearing Portland apart looking for you, called in every favor, leaned on every contact, threatened people who didn't deserve it. He stopped, choosing words carefully. I was not rational. My uncle had to physically restrain me from doing something that would have gotten a lot of people killed. Claire's stomach turned. This was the Nico she remembered, the dangerous one. But you didn't, she said quietly. Do the thing, whatever it was. No, because my cousin Dmitri asked me one question that changed everything. He met her eyes. He asked what I thought you'd do if I dragged you back, if I used force or threats or fear to make you stay. What did you say? I said you'd hate me forever, and he said, so she already won. You've already lost her. The only question now is whether you'll lose yourself too. Nico's jaw tightened. I fired him the next day for saying it, and then I spent the next 3 days thinking about nothing else. That's when you started therapy? That's when I admitted I needed therapy. Actually, starting took another month. Turns out, acknowledging you're the villain in someone else's story is harder than you'd think. She wanted to reach across the table, to offer comfort, but couldn't quite make herself close the distance. You weren't a villain, Nico. You were just, say it, dangerous, controlling, so consumed by the organization that you couldn't see what it was doing to us. To you. He nodded slowly. Dr. Marsh said something similar, less diplomatic. I'm surprised she took you as a patient. She almost didn't. Made me do 6 intake sessions before she'd agree to actual therapy. Said she needed to make sure I was serious about change and not just looking for someone to validate my behavior. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. She's not easy on me. Never has been. Good. Claire surprised herself with the vehemence. You need someone who won't let you hide behind that control. Like you did? The words hung in the air between them, not quite an accusation, not quite a compliment. I tried, she said. In the beginning, remember? I told you the violence bothered me, the secrecy, the way you'd come home covered in other people's blood and expect me to just accept it. And I told you it was necessary, that it was business, that you were overreacting. You made me feel crazy for having boundaries. I know. He rubbed his face, looking suddenly exhausted. That's what I've been working on. Understanding how I weaponized your love, how I used your feelings for me to override your instincts. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. I loved you so much, Nico, and I hated myself for it. Because I knew that staying would destroy me. But leaving felt like cutting out my own heart. So you cut out mine instead. The bitterness in his voice was new, raw. She'd never heard him sound so openly hurt. That's not fair, she said. None of this is fair, Claire. You left without a word, disappeared in the middle of the night, took our child, a child I didn't even know existed, and made sure I could never find you. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I was protecting myself. Protecting Evan. From what? He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. From a man who loved you, who would have done anything for you. From a man who thought love meant ownership. She stood too, anger rising. You didn't want a wife, Nico. You wanted a possession, something beautiful to display and control. Is that really what you think? That's what I experienced. He turned to face her, and for the first time since they'd reconnected, she saw real anger in his expression. Not the cold, calculated fury she remembered, but something hotter, more honest. You never gave me a chance to be anything else, he said. You decided I was irredeemable and ran. Didn't ask me to change. Didn't tell me what you needed. Just vanished and let me believe you were dead for 6 months until a private investigator found evidence you were alive. You had me investigated? Of course I did. You were my wife and you disappeared. He caught himself, visibly pulling back the anger. Took a breath. Another. Sorry, I'm sorry. This is exactly what Dr. Marsh warned me about. That I'd use your leaving to avoid accountability for why you left. The shift from anger to self-awareness happened so quickly it made her dizzy. Nico. No, you're right. About all of it. He returned to the table but didn't sit. I was controlling. I did treat you like a possession. And when you tried to tell me, I dismissed your feelings because acknowledging them would have meant admitting I was becoming my father. He gripped the back of the chair. Do you know what terrified me most after you left? Not that you were gone, that I'd turned into the exact man I swore I'd never become. Claire's anger deflated. She remembered his father, Alexei Varga, cold and brutal, a man who'd ruled his family with iron control and casual violence. Nico had grown up watching his mother fade into a ghost under that regime. "You're not your father," she said quietly. "How would you know? You left before you could find out. Because your father would never have gone to therapy, would never have dismantled his own empire, would never have spent 3 years working on himself before even trying to find his son." She moved closer. "I'm angry at who you were, Nico, furious even, but I can see you've changed. I'm just not sure I can trust it yet." "What would help you trust it?" She thought about that. "Consistency, time, seeing how you handle conflict when Evan's involved, when things don't go your way. You're waiting for me to snap. Can you blame me?" "No." He met her eyes. "But it hurts knowing you're constantly braced for me to become a monster." "Then prove I'm wrong. Keep proving it. Every day." They stood there in the quiet kitchen, the dishwasher humming, years of pain and love and regret stacked between them like a wall. Finally, Nico spoke. "I sold my interests in the organization 2 years ago. The day I signed the papers, I called the FBI and told them I wanted to talk. Spent 18 months in witness protection while they built their case." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos, and showed her one. Him, younger, standing with federal agents outside a courthouse. "This was taken the day my uncle was sentenced. 40 years, no parole. Your uncle raised you." "My uncle taught me that violence was a business tool and women were property. Some lessons needed to be unlearned, even if it meant burning everything down." He swiped to another photo. "This is my company now. Legitimate tech investments, venture capital. Board meetings that don't end with someone bleeding." She studied the photo. Nico in a conference room with people in business, casual, everyone smiling, normal, legal. "Why tech?" she asked. "Because I'm good at reading people and predicting trends. Turns out those skills translate well when you're not using them for criminal enterprises." A wry smile. "Also, the profit margins are better and nobody tries to kill you." "Do you miss it, the organization?" He considered that. "I miss the certainty, knowing exactly who I was and what was expected. But I don't miss the person it made me. And I definitely don't miss looking over my shoulder constantly." "Is it really over? Your uncle's allies, the people who... most are in prison or dead. The few who aren't know I turned state's evidence. I'm poison to them now." He set down his phone. "I'm as safe as anyone can be in this world. Which is why I'm not putting Evan in danger by being part of his life. I wouldn't have approached you if there was any real threat." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe this was real, that they could actually do this. "Our first therapy session is Tuesday," she said, instead of voicing any of that. "I know, Dr. Marsh sent the appointment confirmation. Are you nervous?" "Terrified." He said it so plainly. "She's going to make us talk about everything. And you're going to hear things about how I felt, about what I went through, and I'm afraid it'll make you hate me more." "I don't hate you, Nico." "Then what do you feel?" She wrapped her arms around herself. "Confused, angry, hopeful, terrified, all of it at once. Every time I look at you, I see 3 different people. The man I fell in love with, the man I ran from, and whoever you are now. And Evan? What does he see?" "His mother's friend who makes really good pancakes and knows everything about dinosaurs." She smiled despite herself. "He likes you. Told me yesterday that he wishes you could stay forever." Nico's expression cracked open. "He said that?" "After you helped him build that Lego set, he said you're the best at following instructions and you don't get mad when pieces don't fit right away." She watched him process this. "That's what he needs, Nico. Patience, kindness, consistency. Can you give him that?" "I can try. I am trying." "I know you are." She moved toward the doorway, suddenly exhausted. "I'm going to bed. We can talk more later." "Claire?" He stopped her with just her name. "Thank you for giving me this chance. I know you didn't have to." She looked back at him, this complicated man who'd been her husband and her nightmare and now something undefined. "Thank you for becoming someone I could give a chance to." The next few weeks developed a rhythm. Nico worked from home most days, video calls and emails from his office while Evan was at school. Claire took on more consulting projects, building her professional life from the desk he'd set up for her. They traded off school pickup, coordinated dinner preparations, negotiated bedtime routines with the awkward politeness of new roommates, and slowly, carefully, they began to relax around each other. She started to notice little things. How Nico always made sure her coffee was ready before she woke up. How he'd take Evan to the park when she had deadline stress written all over her face. How he never once raised his voice, even when Evan threw a spectacular tantrum about eating vegetables. "You don't have to like broccoli," Nico said calmly, while their 6-year-old screamed that green food was poison. "But you do have to try 3 bites. That's the rule." "I hate rules." "Rules aren't about hate or love. They're about taking care of your body." He pushed the plate slightly closer. 3 bites. Then you can have dessert." Evan glared at him with all the fury a first grader could muster. Then, with dramatic suffering, ate 3 tiny bites of broccoli. "There. Are you happy now?" "I'm proud of you," Nico said, and Claire watched her son's expression shift from anger to surprise to pleasure. Later, after Evan was in bed, she found Nico in the living room reviewing documents. "That was impressive," she said. "The broccoli negotiation?" "The way you didn't engage with the tantrum, just held the boundary calmly." He set aside his papers. Dr. Marsh's advice. She said children need consistency more than they need agreement, that my job isn't to make Evan like me, it's to make him feel safe. Where was this wisdom 6 years ago? Locked behind about 50 layers of trauma and toxic masculinity. He smiled, but there was sadness in it. "I'm learning, Claire, every day, but I can't get back the time I lost." She sat down across from him. "You know what's strange? I keep expecting you to slip, to get angry or controlling or like I used to be." "Yes, but you haven't. Not even when Evan dumped an entire bottle of syrup on the floor yesterday. That was an accident. He felt terrible. The old you would have yelled. The old me was an asshole's." He said it without hesitation. "The old me thought control meant strength. Took me years to understand that real strength is staying calm when everything's chaos." "Who taught you that?" "Dr. Marsh, my sponsor. A couple of parenting books." He paused. "You. That note you left. I must have read it 1,000 times." She remembered writing those words in shaky handwriting, tears blurring her vision. "I can't raise a child in your darkness." "I bought a notebook," Nico continued, "started writing responses to that note. Things I wished I could say to you. Apologies, justifications, promises. Wrote in it every day for a year." "Do you still have it?" "Burned it 18 months ago. Dr. Marsh said I needed to stop having conversations with the ghost of you and start working on the real me." He met her eyes. "But I remember what I wrote. Every word." The Tuesday therapy session arrived too quickly. Dr. Rebecca Marsh's office was exactly what Claire expected. Comfortable chairs, soft lighting, shelves filled with psychology texts and tasteful art. The woman herself was in her 50s, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that made you want to either confess everything or run. "Claire, thank you for coming." Dr. Marsh shook her hand firmly. "Nico's told me a lot about you. Should I be worried? Only if you don't like being described as brilliant, stubborn, and the only person who ever made him want to be better." She gestured to the chairs. "Please sit. We have a lot to discuss." The first session was brutal. "Doctor." Marsh didn't let either of them hide behind politeness or therapy speak. She pushed, questioned, forced them to articulate feelings they'd buried under layers of self-protection. "Nico, why did you really want Claire to move in with you?" Dr. Marsh asked. "To build a relationship with my son." "That's what you told Claire. I'm asking what you told yourself at 3 a.m. when you couldn't sleep." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Because I wanted my family back, not just Evan, Claire too." "And Claire, why did you agree?" "For Evan, to give him a chance to know his father." "That's very noble. It's also incomplete." Dr. Marsh's gaze was unflinching. "What else?" Claire felt exposed, vulnerable. "Because part of me never stopped loving him, and I hated myself for it." The admission hung in the air. Nico's sharp intake of breath. Dr. Marsh's satisfied nod. "Good," the therapist said. "Now we can start doing actual work." They spent the next hour excavating the relationship. What had been good, what had been toxic, what patterns they'd each brought from their own childhoods. Claire talked about growing up in foster care, never feeling like she belonged anywhere, how Nico's intensity had felt like finally being chosen, being wanted. until it had felt like being owned. Nico talked about his father's violence, his mother's silent suffering, how he'd learned that love meant possession and protection meant control. How marrying Claire had been his attempt to build something different, and how spectacularly he'd failed. "The night before she left," Nico said, voice rough, "we had a fight. I can't even remember what it was about. Something small. But I remember grabbing her wrist to keep her from walking away. Not hard. Didn't leave a mark. But I saw her face and I saw—" He stopped. "What did you see?" Dr. Marsh prompted gently. "Fear. She was afraid of me. And instead of letting go, instead of apologizing, I told her she was overreacting." He looked at Claire. "That was the moment you decided to leave, wasn't it?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I saw your father in that moment, and I knew if I stayed, one day Evan would see it too." "I'm sorry." His voice broke. "God, Claire, I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't erase what happened. I know, but it's where I have to start." Dr. Marsh let them sit with that for a moment before speaking. "Here's what I need you both to understand. You're not those people anymore. Nico's done significant work to change his patterns. Claire, you've built strength and independence. But those old wounds don't disappear just because you've grown. They'll get triggered. You'll have hard moments." "What do we do when that happens?" Claire asked. "You talk. You take breaks. You remember that you're choosing this every day, and you can choose to stop if it becomes unhealthy." She looked at each of them. This trial period isn't about fixing the past. It's about deciding if you can build a healthy future. Together or apart, but healthy. They left the session emotionally wrung out, drove home in silence. Claire kept glancing at Nico, seeing the tightness around his eyes, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel. "That was hard," she said finally. "Yeah. You okay?" "I don't know." He pulled into the driveway, killed the engine. "Hearing you say you were afraid of me, I knew it intellectually, but hearing the words, I'm not afraid of you now." He turned to look at her. "Aren't you?" She thought about that, really thought. "No, I'm afraid of who you were, afraid of trusting this version of you and being wrong. But I'm not afraid you'll hurt me, not physically." "What about emotionally?" "That's a different fear." She unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't get out. "I'm afraid of falling for you again, of letting my guard down and discovering this is all temporary." "It's not temporary, Claire. This is who I am now." People can relapse, fall back into old patterns. They can. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "That's why I go to therapy every week. Why I have a sponsor I call when I feel myself slipping into old behaviors. Why I'm asking you to watch for red flags and call me on them." His hand was warm, familiar. She'd held this hand 1,000 times, walking through Portland streets, sitting in restaurants, lying in bed planning futures that had never materialized. She pulled away gently. "I need time, Nico." "I know, I'm not trying to rush you." "Aren't you?" She gestured between them. "This whole setup, living together, playing family, feels like you're trying to recreate what we had." "I'm trying to build what we should have had." He opened his car door. "But you're right. If it feels like pressure, we need to talk about boundaries." They walked into the house to find Evan and the babysitter making cookies, flour dusting every surface. Their son looked up, face smeared with chocolate, and beamed. "We made cookies! Want one?" And just like that, the heavy conversation evaporated into the simple joy of a 6-year-old proud of his baking. They ate warm cookies, helped clean the kitchen, gave Evan his bath together, navigating the logistics of pajamas and toothbrushing with the awkward coordination of new partners. "Story time," Evan demanded, running to his room. "Your turn," Claire told Nico. "I did last night." She watched from the doorway as Nico sat on the edge of Evan's bed, book in hand. Her son curled against him with easy trust, and something in her chest twisted painfully. This was what she'd wanted, what she'd imagined during those 48 hours of hope. "Where the Wild Things Are," Evan announced. "It's my favorite." "Good choice," Nico said, and began to read. His voice was soft, expressive, bringing the story to life. Evan's eyes grew heavy, lulled by the familiar words and the warmth of connection. By the time Max returned home to dinner still hot, their son was asleep. Nico carefully extracted himself, pulled the blanket up, and stood looking down at Evan with an expression of such raw love it made Claire's breath catch. "He's perfect," Nico whispered. "He is." They stood together in the doorway, watching their son sleep, and for just a moment Claire let herself feel it. Not fear, not doubt. Hope. Dangerous, terrifying, fragile hope that maybe they could actually make this work. The hope lasted exactly 3 weeks. 3 weeks of careful progress. Of family dinners where Evan chattered about his day, while Nico listened with focused attention. Of therapy sessions that peeled back layers of old hurt and tentatively built new understanding. Of moments when Claire caught herself laughing at something Nico said and forgot to feel guilty about it. 3 weeks of almost believing this could work. Then Luka Volkov called. Claire was in her office, reviewing a contract for a client, when she heard Nico's phone ring in the kitchen. Heard his voice change from warm to cold in the space of a single word. She told herself not to eavesdrop, told herself to respect his privacy. But something in his tone made her pause, document forgotten, listening. "I made myself very clear 2 years ago, Luka." Nico's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the kind of deadly calm she remembered from his old life. "We have no business. We have no relationship. If you're calling because you think—" A pause. She couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but she watched Nico's shoulders go rigid. "Stay away from my family. Not a request, a threat. I'm not the man I was, but I remember how to handle people who make threats they can't back up." He ended the call and stood there, phone gripped so tightly his knuckles went white. Claire watched him take a breath. Another. Saw him physically force his shoulders down, his hands to relax. She should have announced herself, should have walked away and given him space to process whatever had just happened. Instead, she stepped into the kitchen. "Who's Luka Volkov?" Nico spun around, and for just a second, less than a heartbeat, she saw it. The flash of rage. The predatory calculation. The man he used to be, looking out through his eyes. Then it was gone, shuttered behind control so tight it looked painful. "You were listening. I heard you threatening someone." She crossed her arms. "Who is he?" "Nobody. A ghost from the past trying to drag me back into it." "That's not an answer, Nico." He set down his phone with deliberate care. "Luka Volkov used to work for my uncle, mid-level enforcer with delusions of empire. When I turned state's evidence, he was out of the country, avoided prosecution. He's been trying to rebuild what's left of the organization. And he called you because? Because he's an idiot who thinks I might be interested in partnering." Nico's laugh was bitter. "He doesn't understand that some bridges don't just get burned, they get napalmed." Claire studied his face, looking for cracks in the facade. "What did he threaten you with?" "Nothing that matters." "Nico." "He made some vague comments about how exposed I am now, living in the open, having things I care about." His jaw tightened. Things he could hurt. Ice flooded her veins. He threatened Evan. He implied. There's a difference. The hell there is. She stepped closer, anger overriding caution. "If there's even a chance that man could come after our son—" "There isn't." Nico's voice cut through her rising panic. "Luka's all bluster. He doesn't have the resources or the intelligence to actually follow through on anything. He's a small-time operator pretending to be a kingpin." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. I know exactly who Luka Volkov is and what he's capable of." Something dark flickered in his expression. "Which is why I also know he's not a real threat." "Then why did you threaten him back?" Nico was quiet for a long moment. "Because some people only understand violence, and I needed him to understand that choosing me as a target would be the last mistake he ever made." The words hung between them, and Claire felt 6 years of distance slam back into place. This was the man she had run from, the one who spoke about violence like it was a business tool, who calculated threats with cold precision. "You said you'd changed," she whispered. "I have." "Then why do you sound exactly like the man I left?" Pain flashed across his face. "Because that man still exists, Claire. I didn't erase him. I just learned to keep him in a box." He moved toward her slowly. "But when someone threatens my son, our son, that box gets harder to keep closed. So what? You're going to go back to being a mobster because some idiot made a phone call?" "No." He stopped a careful distance away. I'm going to make sure he understands the consequences of continuing this path. Then I'm going to alert my FBI contact and let them handle it through legal channels. You have an FBI contact? Part of my cooperation agreement. I maintain a relationship with the agent who handled my case. He keeps me informed of any activity that might impact my safety. I keep him informed of contacts from my old life. Nico pulled out his phone. I'll call him right now if it makes you feel better. She wanted to say yes, wanted to watch him make the call and prove he was handling this the right way. But a different fear gnawed at her. What if it's not just Luca? What if there are others? There aren't. You can't know that for certain. I can know that everyone with the motivation and resources to come after me is either dead or in prison. He said it with absolute certainty. Luca is a lone wolf trying to howl loud enough to matter. He doesn't. Claire wanted to believe him, but that flash she'd seen in his eyes, that moment when the old Nikolai had looked out, had shaken something loose in her carefully constructed trust. I need some air, she said. Claire, just give me some space, please. She grabbed her jacket and walked out into the cold November afternoon. Walked without direction, trying to sort through the tangle of fear and anger and disappointment knotting in her chest. She'd known this could happen. Known that Nico's past might reach forward and grab them, but knowing intellectually and experiencing viscerally were different things. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nico. I called Agent Morrison. He's looking into Volkov's current activities. I'm also arranging for enhanced security at Evan's school, just as a precaution. She stared at the message. He was doing everything right, everything she should want him to do. So why did she feel like running? Another text. I'm sorry I scared you. That's the last thing I wanted. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Finally, she typed back, You didn't scare me. I scared myself by forgetting what your world used to be. The response came quickly. It's not my world anymore, but I understand if you need time to process this. She walked for another hour before heading back to the house. Found Nico in the living room, laptop open, but clearly not working. He looked up when she entered. Evan's still at Mason's house. Playdate runs until 5. I know. She sat down across from him. What did the FBI say? Agent Morrison is aware of Volkov's activities. He's small-time, like I said, trying to rebuild with people even more incompetent than he is. Nico closed his laptop. Morrison said he'll increase surveillance on Volkov's known associates. If there's any indication of a real threat, we'll know immediately. And the school security? I spoke with Westmont's head of security. They've been briefed on the situation. No one picks up Evan except you or me, and they'll call to confirm before releasing him to either of us. He paused. I also hired a private security firm to do irregular patrols of the neighborhood. You won't see them, but they'll be there. It should have felt like safety. Instead, it felt like the walls closing in. This is what I ran from, she said quietly. This constant vigilance, never knowing if today's the day something terrible happens. I know. Do you? Because you seem very calm about the fact that someone from your past just threatened our son. I'm not calm. His voice was tight. I'm controlled. There's a difference. Inside, I want to find Luka Volkov and make sure he never threatens anyone again. But that's not who I am anymore. So I'm sitting here following proper channels and trusting the system I used to despise. How's that working out for you? It's torture. He said it with such bleak honesty that her anger deflated slightly. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to handle this the old way. Fast, permanent. But I promised you I'd changed, promised myself. So I'm handling it the right way even though it feels like swallowing glass. Claire studied him. This man caught between who he'd been and who he was trying to become. What would the old you have done? Do you really want to know? Yes. He met her eyes. The old me would have tracked Volkov down within 24 hours. Would have made an example of him violent enough that anyone else considering a similar move would think twice. Would have protected my family through fear and force. His hands clenched. And I would have felt completely justified doing it. And now? Now I understand that protection through violence just creates more violence. That the example I need to set is for my son, not my enemies. That being a man Evan can respect is worth more than being a man people fear. She wanted to believe that, wanted it so desperately it hurt. I need you to promise me something, she said. Anything. If this escalates, if Volkov becomes a real threat, you don't handle it alone. You talk to me. We make decisions together about how to protect Evan. I promise. And if you feel yourself slipping back into old patterns, you tell me. You don't hide it and hope I don't notice. I promise that too. He leaned forward. Claire, I know this is scary. Know it triggers every fear that made you leave, but I need you to trust that I'm not that man anymore. I'm trying. That's all I can ask. They sat in heavy silence until Evan came home, full of stories about the playdate and completely oblivious to the tension in the house. Claire manufactured enthusiasm, asked questions, helped him with homework while Nico made dinner. They moved through the evening routine with careful normalcy, both of them performing parenthood while fear hummed underneath. That night, after Evan was asleep, Claire stood in the doorway of her bedroom and realized she didn't want to be alone, didn't want to lie in the dark imagining threats. She found Nico in the living room, staring at his laptop but clearly not seeing it. Can we talk? She asked. Of course. She sat beside him on the couch, closer than usual, needing the proximity. I've been thinking about what you said, about the old you versus the new you. And? I don't think they're different people. I think they're the same person who's learned to make different choices. She turned to face him, which means the capacity for violence is still there. You've just chosen not to use it. Yes. That terrifies me. It should. He set aside the laptop. I'd be lying if I said the impulse was gone. It's not. But impulse and action are different things. Every day I wake up and choose not to be that man. Choose therapy over revenge. Choose legal solutions over violent ones. Choose to be someone Evan can be proud of. What if one day you make a different choice? Then I've failed, and I lose everything that matters. He took her hand carefully. But I have safeguards, Claire. Dr. Marsh, my sponsor, Agent Morrison, people who know my history and watch for signs I'm backsliding. And now I have you, calling me on my bullshit, holding me accountable. She laced her fingers through his, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers. I don't want that responsibility. You already have it. You had it the day you wrote that note, the day you showed me what I was becoming. His voice softened. You saved my life, Claire, even if you don't want the credit for it. I just wanted to save myself. And in doing that, you saved me too. They sat like that, hands joined, while the house settled around them. Finally, Claire spoke. I'm not ready to forgive you for who you were. I'm not asking you to. But I'm trying to trust who you are now. That's enough, more than enough. She rested her head on his shoulder just for a moment, letting herself draw comfort from his presence. Felt him carefully put his arm around her, holding her loosely enough that she could pull away if she wanted. She didn't want to. The calm lasted 4 days. 4 days of heightened security that felt simultaneously reassuring and suffocating. Of FBI updates that said Volkov was being monitored but hadn't made any moves. Of family therapy where Dr. Marsh helped them process the fear and find strategies for managing it together. 4 days of Claire watching Nico carefully, looking for signs of the man he used to be. Then Westmont Academy called. Claire was in a meeting with a client when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but something made her glance at the caller ID. Westmont Academy, Evan's school. Her heart stopped. I have to take this, she told her client, stepping into the hallway. Hello? Ms. Donovan, this is Principal Hawthorne. The woman's voice was calm but serious. There's been an incident. Evan is safe, but we need you to come to the school immediately. What kind of incident? A man attempted to pick up Evan from the playground during recess. Our security team intervened before any contact was made, and the police have been called, but we need you here. The world tilted. I'm on my way. She called Nico while running to her car. He answered on the first ring. The school called. Someone tried to take Evan. I'm already on my way. His voice was utterly calm, deadly calm. Stay on the line with me. She drove through Portland traffic with her heart hammering, Nico's voice in her ear talking her through the panic, telling her Evan was safe, that the school had protocols, that this was why they'd put security measures in place. This is Volkov, she said. You know it is. We don't know anything yet. but she could hear the rage underneath his control. Just get to the school. I'm 5 minutes out. The school's parking lot was full of police cars. Claire ran inside, found Principal Hawthorne in her office with Evan sitting on a chair looking small and scared. She grabbed her son, pulling him into her arms. Baby, are you okay? Did anyone hurt you? I'm fine, Mom, but his voice was shaky. There was a man. He said you sent him to pick me up early, but Miss Patterson said that wasn't true and called security. You did exactly right. She kissed his forehead, breathing in his little boy smell. So smart to tell your teacher. Nico arrived moments later, and Claire watched Evan's face light up despite the fear. Nico, did you hear? There was a bad man, but I was smart and told Miss Patterson. I heard. You were incredibly brave. Nico crouched down to Evan's level, and Claire saw his hands shaking slightly before he fisted them. Can you tell me exactly what happened? Evan recounted the story with the slightly garbled chronology of a 6-year-old. A man had approached the playground fence. Tall, dark hair, nice smile. Said Evan's mom had sent him to pick him up for a doctor's appointment. Evan had started toward the gate, because adults didn't usually lie, did they? But Ms. Patterson had intercepted him. The man had left quickly when security approached. Did he touch you at all? Nico asked, voice carefully neutral. No. Ms. Patterson made sure I stayed away from the fence. Good. That's very good. A police detective arrived to take statements. Claire watched Nico transform into someone she half recognized. Cooperative, but controlled, answering questions with precision. His rage locked so far down it was almost invisible. Almost. She could see it in the tightness around his eyes, the way his jaw clenched between sentences, the absolute stillness of his body, like he was physically restraining himself from violence. The detective showed them security footage. A man in a dark jacket, baseball cap obscuring his face, approaching the playground fence, talking to Evan through the chain link. The body language was casual, non-threatening. Could have been any parent, except he wasn't a parent. We're running facial recognition, the detective said. But with the hat and angle, it's going to be difficult to get a match. Try Luka Volkov, Nico said flatly. Russian national, known associate of the Varga organization. He made threats against my family 4 days ago. The detective's expression sharpened. You're the one who turned state's evidence. Yes. And you reported these threats to the FBI? Agent David Morrison. He's been monitoring Volkov's activities. I'll coordinate with Morrison's office. The detective made notes. In the meantime, we're increasing patrols in this area. I'd also recommend... I've already arranged private security, Nico interrupted, and we'll be implementing additional safety protocols. They took Evan home. Claire sat in the back seat with him, holding his hand, while Nico drove with white-knuckled control. Her son chattered nervously, the adrenaline making him talkative. She made appropriate responses while her mind spun through scenarios, each one worse than the last. What if Ms. Patterson hadn't been paying attention? What if Evan had been playing in a different part of the yard? What if the man had been more aggressive? What if they'd lost him? At home, Nico carried a half-asleep Evan upstairs while Claire stood in the kitchen, shaking. Dr. Marsh called. Nico must have contacted her and talked Claire through breathing exercises until the panic subsided into something manageable. This is what I was afraid of, Claire said when she could speak. This is why I left, because this life, your life, it puts targets on people I love. The life Nico had, Dr. Marsh corrected gently. Not the life he has now. This is blowback from choices he's already atoned for. That doesn't make Evan any safer. No, but Nico's response does. He called the FBI, worked with police, implemented security through legal channels. That's not the old Nikolai Varga. That's a man who's changed. What if changing isn't enough? Then you make different choices about the future. But don't let fear make those choices for you. Make them from a place of clarity. After the call ended, Claire found Nico in his office, door closed. She knocked softly. Come in. He was standing at the window, staring out at the darkening street. His posture was rigid, every muscle locked tight. Evan's asleep, she said. Good. She moved closer. Nico, look at me. He turned, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. Not the cold calculation she'd feared, something rawer, more human. "I'm going to kill him," Nico said quietly. "I know I'm not supposed to think that way. No, I'm supposed to trust the system and let justice handle it. But right now all I can think about is finding Luka Volkov and making sure he never threatens my son again." The honesty of it was almost shocking. "But you're not going to do that," she said. "No." "Why not?" "Because if I do, I lose Evan anyway. Lose you. Lose everything I've built." His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. "But I want to, Claire. God help me. I want to so badly I can taste it." She should have been terrified, should have grabbed Evan and run. Instead, she crossed the space between them and took his face in her hands. "Thank you for telling me the truth. That I want to commit murder? That you're struggling, that it's hard, that you're choosing not to, even though every instinct is screaming at you to protect us the old way." She held his gaze. "That's the difference, Nico. Not that you don't feel the impulse, that you don't act on it." He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. "I called Dr. Marsh and my sponsor, and Agent Morrison, told all of them what I'm feeling. They're helping me process it the right way." "What did Morrison say?" "That they're putting a team on Volkov tonight. That attempting to abduct a child is a federal crime. That Volkov just made the stupidest mistake of his life, and they'll have him in custody within 48 hours. Nico opened his eyes. Legal consequences. Real ones. Not vigilante justice. "And that's enough for you?" "It has to be." She pulled him down and kissed him. Not gentle, not tentative, but fierce and desperate, trying to anchor both of them in this moment. He responded with equal intensity, his hands coming up to cup her face, and for a few seconds, the fear receded into the background. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Claire rested her forehead against his. "I need you to promise me something," she whispered. "Anything. If Volkov isn't arrested in 48 hours, if the FBI can't find him, you don't go looking yourself. You keep trusting the process." His jaw tightened. "Claire, promise me, Nico. Because if you go back to that life even once, even for the right reasons, we're done. I'll take Evan and disappear so deep you'll never find us." The words hung between them, an ultimatum she'd never wanted to make. "I promise," he said finally, "but I need you to promise me something too." "What?" "That you won't run without giving me a chance to prove I can keep you safe the right way. That you'll trust me enough to let me protect our son without becoming the monster I used to be." She thought about that note she'd written 6 years ago, about the woman who'd been so afraid she'd fled in the night, about the person she'd become, stronger, but still carrying those scars. "I promise to try," she said. "That's the best I can do." "Then we'll try together." They stood like that, holding each other in the gathering darkness, while somewhere in Portland, law enforcement hunted for a man who'd made the mistake of threatening their family. And despite everything, the fear, the danger, the uncertainty, Claire felt something shift. She wasn't alone in this anymore. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The 48 hours stretched into an eternity. Agent Morrison called every 12 hours with updates that felt simultaneously reassuring and terrifying. Volkov had been spotted in Seattle. No, wait, that was a false lead. They had surveillance footage from a gas station in Eugene. His known associates were being rounded up for questioning. A warrant had been issued. They were closing in, but they hadn't found him yet. Claire watched Nico during those 2 days the way a seismologist watches fault lines, alert for any tremor that might signal an eruption. But he remained steady, went to work, helped Evan with homework, made dinner, called his therapist twice and his sponsor 3 times. Every movement was controlled, deliberate, like he was walking a tightrope over an abyss and knew one wrong step would send him plummeting. On the second night, she woke at 3 a.m. to find his side of the hallway dark. She'd started sleeping with her door open, listening for Evan but also for Nico, making sure he didn't slip out in the night to handle things his own way. She found him in the living room, laptop open, face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. "You promised," she said from the doorway. He looked up, startled. "I'm not... Claire, I'm just monitoring police scanners, listening for any chatter about Volkov's location. That's not trusting the process." "I know." He closed the laptop. "I can't sleep. Can't stop thinking about what could have happened, what still could happen." She sat beside him in the dark, Morrison said they'd find him. Morrison also said this wouldn't happen in the first place, that Volkov wasn't a credible threat. His voice was tight with frustration. I trusted their assessment, and it almost cost us Evan. But it didn't. He's safe upstairs because the security protocols worked. This time. The words hung heavy between them. She wanted to reassure him, to promise that everything would be fine, but she couldn't, because he was right. This time, they'd been lucky. Next time, they might not be. "What are you most afraid of?" she asked quietly. He was silent for a long moment. Then, "That I won't be able to protect you both without becoming the man I used to be. That the only way to truly keep you safe is to do something that will make you leave me. Nico, I keep running through scenarios in my head. What if Volkov tries again? What if the FBI doesn't find him before he makes another move? What if next time he doesn't target Evan at school, but here, at the house? What if—" He stopped, rubbing his face. "I can't turn my brain off, can't stop calculating threats and responses." Claire took his hand. "That's the trauma talking. You spent years in a world where constant vigilance kept you alive. Of course you can't just turn that off." Dr. Marsh said the same thing, said I'm experiencing hypervigilance as a trauma response. "Did she tell you how to manage it?" "Grounding techniques. Mindfulness. Reminding myself that I have support systems now, that I don't have to handle everything alone." He squeezed her hand. "That you're here. I am here. Even though I brought this danger into your life, you didn't bring it. It followed you from a life you left behind. There's a difference." She shifted closer. "And you're handling it the right way. That matters, Nico." "Does it? Because right now it feels like the right way is just slower, less effective. It's the way that doesn't make you a murderer. The way that doesn't put you in prison. The way that lets you actually be here for Evan." She turned to face him fully. "You think I haven't noticed? That you've been making calls, checking in with Morrison, coordinating with the security team, all while still showing up for dinner every night? Still reading bedtime stories? Still being present? That's just basic parenting. No, it's extraordinary parenting under extraordinary circumstances. You're holding yourself together when everything in you wants to fall apart and handle this violently." Her voice softened. "I'm proud of you." She felt him tense beside her. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because I don't deserve it. I created this situation. My choices, my past, put our son in danger. Your choices to leave that life and start over also gave him a father who's trying every day to be better. Those count too." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're not the villain here, Nico. Volkov is." They sat in the darkness, drawing comfort from each other's presence, until exhaustion finally pulled them both towards sleep. Claire woke at dawn to find herself curled against Nico's chest on the couch, his arms wrapped protectively around her. She should have pulled away, should have maintained the careful distance she'd been guarding. Instead, she let herself stay there for a few more minutes, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. When Evan padded downstairs at 7, he found them like that and grinned. "Are you guys having a sleepover?" Claire sat up, smoothing her hair. "We fell asleep talking. Can I have a sleepover too?" He climbed onto the couch between them, wiggling into the small space and making himself comfortable. "This is cozy." Nico wrapped an arm around his son, pulling him close, and Claire watched something in his expression soften. All the tension from the night before, all the fear and rage and helplessness, melted into simple love. "Best sleepover ever," Nico said, kissing the top of Evan's head. They made pancakes together, all three of them crowded in the kitchen, Evan standing on a stool to help flip, Nico teaching him about heat distribution and timing while Claire set the table. It felt absurdly normal, like they were just a regular family having a regular morning. The illusion shattered when Agent Morrison called at 8:47 a.m. Nico answered on speaker so Claire could hear. "Morrison, tell me you have good news." "We have Volkov in custody." The agent's voice was professionally satisfied. "Picked him up at a motel in Tacoma 2 hours ago. He's being transported to Portland now for arraignment." Claire felt her knees go weak with relief. Nico's hand tightened on the phone. "What are the charges?" he asked. "Attempted kidnapping, violation of federal witness protection protocols. You're still technically under that umbrella, even though you're using your real name. Couple of other things we found when we searched his room." Morrison paused. He's not getting out, Varga. Not for a very long time. What did you find in his room? Surveillance photos. Detailed notes about your routines, Evan's schedule, Ms. Donovan's movements, maps of the house and school. He'd been planning this for weeks. Nico's expression went absolutely cold. Claire watched him process this information, saw the rage flash through his eyes before he locked it down with visible effort. I want to testify, Nico said. Whatever you need to put him away, I'll provide it. We'll need statements from both you and Ms. Donovan, and we'll need to talk to Evan about what happened at the school. He's 6 years old. I know. We have child psychologists who specialize in these interviews. We'll make it as easy as possible. Morrison's voice gentled. I know this is hard, but his testimony will help ensure Volkov never gets the chance to try this again. After the call ended, Nico stood very still, phone still in his hand. Claire could see him shaking. It's over, she said. He's in custody. Evan's safe. He photographed our son. Nico's voice was barely above a whisper. Followed him, documented his entire routine, was planning a... He cut himself off, the muscles in his jaw working. But he didn't succeed. The system worked. This time. Every time. Because you did everything right. You reported the threats. You set up security. You trusted the process, even when it was killing you to wait. She moved closer. And now Volkov will face legal consequences. Real prison time. Justice, Nico, not revenge. He looked at her and she saw something break in his expression. All the control he'd been maintaining for 2 days cracked, and suddenly he was crying. Harsh, painful sobs that seemed ripped from somewhere deep. Claire pulled him into her arms, holding him while he shook. Evan appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with concern. Why is Nico crying? Because sometimes even grown-ups need to cry when they're relieved, Claire said, gesturing for Evan to come closer. The bad man who tried to pick you up? The police caught him. He can't hurt anyone anymore. So Nico's happy crying? Something like that. Evan hugged Nico's waist fiercely. It's okay. You kept us safe. Those words seemed to undo something in Nico completely. He dropped to his knees, pulling Evan into a crushing embrace, and Claire watched her son pat his father's back with the unselfconscious comfort only children can offer. You're really good at hugs, Evan said seriously. Even better than Mom sometimes. That pulled a wet laugh from Nico. Your mom taught me how. She's the best teacher. Later, after Evan had gone back to watching cartoons, Nico found Claire in the kitchen. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not letting me handle that the old way. For holding me accountable. For trusting that I could do the right thing even when I wasn't sure I could. You did it yourself, Nico. I just reminded you why it mattered. No, I did it because you were watching. Because disappointing you, losing you and Evan, that was scarier than anything Volkov could do to me. He moved closer. I need you to know something. Okay. These past weeks, living with you and Evan, building this strange little family, it's been the best thing in my life. Better than I deserve, better than I hoped for. He took her hands carefully. And I know we're still in the trial period. Know you haven't decided if you can really trust me long term. But I need you to know that I'm all in. Whatever happens, however long it takes, I'm committed to being the man you both need me to be. Claire felt tears burn her eyes. Nico, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. But she did have something to say. Something she'd been avoiding because admitting it felt like surrender. I'm falling for you again, she whispered. Not the man you were, the man you've become. And it terrifies me because I don't know if I can survive losing you twice. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. You won't lose me. Not if I have anything to say about it. You can't promise that. Watch me. They stood like that, holding each other in the morning light. While somewhere in Portland, Luka Volkov sat in a federal holding cell, and their lives slowly shifted back towards something resembling normal, or at least a new version of normal that included family therapy, security protocols, and the careful reconstruction of trust. The following week brought a flurry of legal proceedings. Claire and Nico gave detailed statements to federal prosecutors. A child psychologist spent 2 gentle hours with Evan, helping him tell his story in a way that wouldn't traumatize him further. The school implemented enhanced security measures. Agent Morrison called with regular updates on the case building against Volkov. And through it all, Claire watched Nico hold steady, saw him choose the hard right over the easy wrong again and again, watched him comfort Evan when nightmares came, watched him coordinate with lawyers and law enforcement without once suggesting he could handle things more efficiently his own way, watched him become the father their son deserved. One evening, 3 weeks after Volkov's arrest, Claire found herself in Dr. Marsh's office for their regular family session. Evan was with a babysitter, giving them space to talk openly. "How are you both processing what happened?" Dr. Marsh asked. "I'm angry," Claire said, "at Volkov for putting us through this, at the universe for letting Nico's past catch up to us, at myself for almost running instead of trusting the process." "You thought about running?" "Every day for the first week after the school incident, packed bags in my head, planned routes, figured out how to disappear again." She glanced at Nico. "I didn't tell you that." "I knew," he said quietly. "Saw you looking at Evan like you were memorizing him, like you were preparing to say goodbye to this life." "What stopped you?" Dr. Marsh asked Claire. "Him," she gestured to Nico. "Watching him choose us over his instincts every single day, calling his therapist instead of his old contacts, trusting federal agents instead of taking matters into his own hands." Her voice cracked. "He proved that change isn't just possible, it's sustainable, even under the worst pressure." Dr. Marsh turned to Nico. "How does it feel to hear that?" "Terrifying, because it means the stakes are even higher now. If I slip, if I make one wrong choice, I don't just lose my family, I destroy her trust in the possibility of change." He leaned forward. "But also freeing, because for the first time, I believe I actually deserve this, that I've earned the right to be here." "That's significant growth from our early sessions," Dr. Marsh observed. "Do you remember what you said the first time you came to see me? That I wanted to change, but didn't know if I could. That the man I'd been felt like the only version of myself I knew how to be. And now? Now I know there are multiple versions. The man I was, the man I'm becoming, the man I want to be for my son." He looked at Claire. "The man I want to be for her, if she'll let me." Dr. Marsh made a note. "Claire, where are you in terms of trusting this version of Nico?" Claire thought about that carefully. "I trust him with Evan completely. Trust that he'll protect our son, put his needs first, be the stable presence Evan deserves." She paused. "But trusting him with my heart again? That's harder." "What makes it hard?" "Fear that this is temporary, that stress or conflict will bring back the old Nico, that I'm setting myself up for devastation." She twisted her hands together. "I left because I couldn't survive that relationship. Can't go through that pain again." "What would help you feel safer taking that risk?" "I don't know. Time, maybe. More evidence that this isn't just him performing change, but actually being changed." Nico spoke quietly. "What if I can't prove it to your satisfaction? What if no amount of time or evidence is enough because the fear is too deep?" The question hung in the air. Claire felt tears prick her eyes because he'd articulated her worst fear, that she was too damaged to ever trust fully again. "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe we just keep doing what we're doing, co-parenting, living together, being friends who used to be married." "Is that enough for you?" "It has to be, for now." "Doctor." Marsh leaned back. "I'm going to challenge you both. Claire, you're protecting yourself from potential pain by refusing to be vulnerable. That's understandable given your history, but it also means you're preventing the possibility of real intimacy. I'm being plenty intimate. We live together, raise a child together. You're being functionally intimate. Not emotionally. You're keeping yourself at a safe distance even while sharing space." Dr. Marsh turned to Nico. "And you're accepting that distance because you feel like you don't deserve to ask for more. Like you have to earn your way back into her heart through perfect behavior." "Don't I?" "Perfect behavior is a performance. It's unsustainable. What Claire needs isn't perfection, it's authenticity. The real you, flaws and struggles included, choosing her every day." "I am being authentic. Are you? Or are you being the version of yourself you think she needs you to be?" Nico was quiet for a long moment. "I'm terrified that if she sees the real me, the one who still struggles with rage, who still has violent impulses, who still wants to solve problems with force, she'll confirm that I'm exactly who she ran from." And Claire, Dr. Marsh continued, you're terrified that if you let yourself love him fully, he'll confirm your worst fears by reverting to old patterns. Yes. So you're both protecting yourselves from hypothetical pain by avoiding real connection. Do you see the problem? Claire looked at Nico, saw her own fear reflected in his eyes, saw the careful distance they'd both been maintaining even while living in the same house, raising the same child, rebuilding the same broken relationship. We're stuck, she said. You're at an impasse, Dr. Marsh corrected, which means someone needs to take a risk. Someone needs to be vulnerable first. What if I'm not brave enough? Claire whispered. What if you are? Dr. Marsh met her eyes. You fled an abusive relationship while pregnant, built a new life from nothing, kept yourself and your son safe for 6 years, then made the incredibly brave choice to give Nico another chance. You've been nothing but brave, Claire. Don't stop now. The session ended, but the words stayed with Claire. That night, after Evan was asleep, she stood outside Nico's bedroom door for a full 5 minutes before knocking. Come in. She found him reading in bed, glasses perched on his nose in a way that made him look younger, softer. Can we talk? She asked. Of course. He set aside his book, giving her his full attention. She sat on the edge of his bed, hands twisted together. Dr. Marsh was right about me keeping myself at a distance. You have every right to protect yourself. Do I? Or am I just being a coward? She forced herself to meet his eyes. I keep waiting for proof that you've changed enough, that you're safe enough, that loving you won't destroy me. But what if there's never enough proof? What if I'm just using fear as an excuse? An excuse for what? To avoid feeling this. She pressed a hand to her chest. This terrifying, overwhelming love that never actually went away. I told myself I was over you, that 6 years and a new life had erased what we were. But it didn't. I just buried it. Nico's expression was carefully neutral. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired of being afraid, tired of protecting myself from something that might never happen, tired of punishing us both for who you used to be instead of celebrating who you've become. Claire, let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I love you, Nico. Not the sanitized, safe version you've been showing me. All of you. The man who still struggles, who still has dark impulses, who chooses every day to be better than his worst instincts. That's who I love. He stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. You love me. I never stopped. Even when I hated you. Even when I ran. Even when I was terrified of you. Tears streamed down her face. I love you and it scares me to death, but I'm done pretending I don't. Nico crossed the space between them in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms. She felt him shaking against her. Say it again, he whispered. I love you. Again. I love you, Nikolai Varga. You complicated, damaged, wonderful man. I love you. He kissed her then, desperate and tender and full of 6 years of longing. She kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring all her fear and hope and love into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you too. Never stopped. Never could. I know. I've always known. But then why did it take us so long to say it? Because we're both idiots who thought protecting ourselves was more important than being happy? He laughed, genuine and warm and full of relief. Dr. Marsh is going to be insufferably pleased with herself next session. Let her be. She earned it. Claire pulled back slightly. This doesn't mean everything's fixed. We still have work to do. I know. And I'm still going to call you on your shit when you slip into old patterns. I'm counting on it. And we're taking things slow. Just because I love you doesn't mean... He kissed her again, cutting off her words. When he pulled back, he was smiling. We'll go as slow as you need. I've waited 6 years. I can wait as long as it takes. What if I don't want to wait? His expression turned serious. Then we move forward together. At whatever pace feels right. No pressure, no expectations. Just us figuring this out as we go. She stayed in his room that night, just talking, holding each other, rebuilding the intimacy they'd lost. When dawn broke, she woke in his arms feeling safer than she had in years. Evan found them at breakfast, sitting close, hands intertwined, and his face lit up. Are you guys boyfriend and girlfriend now? Claire looked at Nico, saw the question in his eyes. She squeezed his hand. Something like that, she said. Good. I like it when you're happy. Evan climbed into his chair. Can we have pancakes again? And just like that, they moved forward into a new version of normal, one built on honesty and hard work and the choice to love each other despite the risk. The 4-month mark arrived on a Tuesday morning in late February, exactly 16 weeks after Claire and Evan had moved into the house in the West Hills. She woke to find Nico already gone, his side of the bed, their bed now, for the past month, cool to the touch. A note on his pillow read simply, "Meeting this morning, back by lunch, love you." She traced the words with her finger, still marveling at how easily they'd fallen into this, how loving him had gone from terrifying to natural, how waking up next to him felt less like a risk and more like coming home. But today was decision day. The trial period was over. Time to determine what came next. Claire found Evan in the kitchen, attempting to pour his own cereal and making a spectacular mess. She helped him clean up, made coffee, tried to quiet the anxious voice in her head asking, what if Nico wanted to formalize everything and she wasn't ready? What if he wanted to slow down and she'd already committed too much of her heart? What if the past 4 months had been real for her but just another negotiation for him? She hated that the doubt still crept in sometimes. Doctor. Marsh said it was normal, that trust rebuilt slowly, that she shouldn't expect 6 years of fear to evaporate overnight, but she wished it would. Nico returned at noon as promised, carrying a leather portfolio that made Claire's stomach clench. Documents, contracts, the formal end to their trial arrangement. Can we talk? He asked. After lunch, when Evan goes down for quiet time. She nodded, throat tight. They made sandwiches together, the familiar choreography of their kitchen dance, while Evan chattered about a project at school. Claire barely heard him, too focused on the portfolio sitting on the counter like a ticking bomb. When Evan finally retreated to his room with a stack of books, Nico gestured to the living room. I have something to show you. She followed him, heart hammering. He sat on the couch and patted the space beside him. When she settled there, he opened the portfolio and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I had my lawyer draw this up, he said. Claire's stomach dropped. Here it came, the legal framework, the custody arrangement, the formal boundaries that would define their co-parenting relationship going forward. She took the paper with shaking hands and read the first line. Dissolution of trial, cohabitation agreement, full withdrawal. Her eyes blurred. He was ending it. 4 months of progress, and he was... Keep reading, Nico said softly. She forced herself to focus. This document hereby nullifies and dissolves the trial cohabitation agreement dated November 3rd between Nikolai Varga and Claire Donovan. All terms, conditions, and provisions of said agreement are void effective immediately. The undersigned parties acknowledge that the trial period has concluded and formal arrangements are no longer necessary or desired. Instead, the parties wish to establish the following. We choose each other, not because a contract says we should, not because a 4-month timeline dictated it, but because we want to build a life together. We choose to be a family, messy and complicated and real. We choose to keep doing the work, keep showing up, keep choosing love even when it's hard. This is not a legal document, it's a promise. We promise to communicate honestly, even when the truth is uncomfortable. We promise to attend therapy, individual and family, for as long as we both shall live. We promise to call each other on our shit. We promise to be partners in parenting Evan, in building our future, in supporting each other's growth. We promise that if either of us feels unsafe or unhappy, we'll speak up before resentment builds. We promise to take breaks when needed. We promise that I love you is never an obligation, but always a choice. Most importantly, we promise that this relationship stands on its own merit, not on legal frameworks or trial periods or anything except our daily decision to be together. Signed this day, the bond between us stronger than any contract could capture. Claire read it twice, tears streaming down her face. When she looked up, Nico was watching her with an expression of such vulnerable hope it made her chest ache. I don't want contracts between us anymore, he said quietly. Don't want timelines or provisions or exit clauses. I just want you, for as long as you'll have me, in whatever way feels right. Nico, let me finish. He took her hands. These 4 months taught me something. I don't need a trial period to know I want to spend my life with you. Don't need proof or guarantees. I just need you to keep choosing me every day, and I'll keep choosing you back. What about the house? The financial arrangements? Evan's education? All of that continues. But not because a contract says so, because we're a family and families take care of each other. He squeezed her hands. I put the house in your name last week. Evan's education fund is in a trust you control. If you want to leave tomorrow, you can. You're not trapped here by money or legal obligations. Her breath caught. You did what? Made sure you're protected. Made sure you never have to stay because you can't afford to leave. His voice was steady. You stay because you want to, or you don't stay at all. That's insane. She stood abruptly, pacing. You can't just give me a house. Can't just... Nico, that's worth over $1 million. And you're worth everything, you and Evan. He remained seated, letting her process. I don't want you to feel owned. Don't want money to be leverage. So I'm removing it from the equation. What if I take Evan and run? What if I sell the house and disappear? Then I'll be devastated. But I still won't regret giving you the freedom to choose. He met her eyes. This only works if you're here by choice, Claire. Real choice. Not because you're financially dependent or legally bound. She stared at him. This man who'd once thought love meant possession, now offering her complete freedom. The growth, the change, it was staggering. You're serious? Completely. What brought this on? He stood, moving to the window. Volkov's trial starts next week. I've been thinking a lot about that time, about how close we came to losing everything. And I realized I was still operating from fear, still trying to lock down our relationship with contracts and frameworks because I was terrified you'd leave. I'm not going anywhere. I know. But I needed you to know you could. That you're not here because I trapped you in a beautiful cage. You're here because you choose to be. He turned back to face her. Doctor, Marsh asked me last session what I was most afraid of. I said losing you. She said that's not actually what I feared. I feared you never truly choosing me, that you'd stay out of obligation or convenience, but never really be mine. So this is about assuaging your fears? No, it's about proving to you that I've changed, that I understand love isn't ownership. He crossed back to her. You've been waiting for me to slip, to revert to controlling behavior. This is me showing you that I won't, that I can hold you with an open hand. Claire felt something break open in her chest. All the fear she'd been carrying, all the waiting for the other shoe to drop. It cracked and fell away. I don't want to leave, she whispered. I know. I want to stay. Want to build this life with you. Want to see where this goes. Then stay. Not because of contracts or money or fear, just because you want to. She kissed him then, pouring all her love and gratitude and remaining fear into it. When they broke apart, she was laughing and crying at the same time. You're insane, you know that, right? No one just gives away a house. I'd give away everything if it meant you felt safe with me. I do feel safe. Finally, after all this time. She pressed her forehead to his. But I have conditions. Name them. We get married again, properly this time. Not some rushed courthouse thing, but an actual wedding where we make promises we both understand. His eyes widened. You want to marry me? Eventually, when we're both ready, when it feels right. She pulled back to look at him. And we do it as equals. You don't get to make unilateral decisions about our future, even generous ones. We discuss things. Decide together. Agreed. And you keep going to therapy. Keep doing the work. Because I love who you've become, but I know it requires maintenance. Already planned to. Dr. Marsh says I'll probably be in therapy the rest of my life. Some damage runs too deep to fully heal. That's okay. I'll be right there with you. We can be beautifully broken together. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I love you so much it terrifies me. Good. Terror means you're paying attention. She smiled against his shoulder. Love should be a little scary. Means it matters. They stood like that until Evan burst into the room, declaring quiet time over and demanding they play dinosaurs. They spent the afternoon on the living room floor, building prehistoric worlds from blocks and imagination, and Claire thought this was what she'd been missing all those years ago. Not the grand gestures or the expensive gifts, just this, simple moments, easy laughter, the three of them being a family. That evening, after Evan was asleep, Claire found Nico in his office, reviewing documents for Volkov's trial. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "About testifying?" "Yes and no." He set aside the papers. Nervous about seeing him again, about having to relive everything publicly, but also relieved. This is the final piece. Once he's sentenced, that chapter of my life closes completely. What if he threatens you in court, tries to intimidate you? Let him try. Nico's voice was calm. I'm not that person anymore, not the one who responds to threats with violence. I'll walk in there, tell the truth, and walk out. Then I'll come home to you and Evan and continue building this life. Just like that? Just like that. He pulled her into his lap. You've taught me something, Claire, that the best revenge isn't violence or intimidation. It's living well, being happy, building something beautiful from the ashes of what used to be. She kissed his temple. When did you get so wise? When I lost everything and had to rebuild from scratch. Turns out hitting rock bottom is a great teacher. The trial proceeded over the following week. Claire attended every day, sitting in the gallery while Nico testified with calm precision. She watched Volkov try to stare him down, try to provoke a reaction. Watched Nico refuse to engage. He simply told the truth about the threats, the surveillance, the attempted kidnapping, with the even tone of someone recounting facts, not seeking vengeance. When Volkov was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison, Nico showed no triumph, no satisfaction, just quiet relief that it was over. They celebrated that night with takeout and a movie, Evan falling asleep between them on the couch. Claire studied her two favorite people, her son drooling slightly on Nico's shoulder, Nico's hand gentle on Evan's back, and felt peace settle over her like a blanket. I think we should tell him, she said softly. Nico looked up from the movie. Tell him what? That you're his father, that we used to be married. The whole truth, age-appropriate version. Are you sure? Dr. Marsh said we could wait until he was older. I know, but he keeps asking questions about why Nico lives here, about whether we love each other. He's smart enough to know something's going on. She stroked Evan's hair. And I don't want him to learn the truth by accident. Want us to control the narrative. When? This weekend. We'll sit him down together, explain everything, answer his questions. Nico was quiet for a long moment. What if it changes how he sees me? What if knowing I used to be He's 6. He doesn't care about your past. He cares that you make him pancakes and know everything about dinosaurs and give the best piggyback rides. She met Nico's eyes. You're his dad in every way that matters. Making it official won't change that. They told Evan on Saturday morning over breakfast. Claire had rehearsed the conversation a dozen times in her head, but when the moment came, the words felt inadequate. Baby, Nico and I need to talk to you about something important, she began. Evan looked up from his cereal, suddenly serious. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart, nothing like that. She glanced at Nico, who nodded encouragement. You know how you've been asking about your daddy? Yeah, you said he loved me but couldn't be with us. That's right. Well, things have changed. Your daddy has been with us this whole time. Evan's brow furrowed in confusion. Then his eyes went wide. Nico? Yes, Nico said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm your dad, Evan. I didn't know about you until a few months ago, but I've loved you from the moment I found out you existed. So you're not just Mom's friend? I'm your father. And I used to be married to your mom a long time ago. We had some problems and she had to leave, but now we're working things out. Nico crouched beside Evan's chair. I know this is confusing. You can ask us anything you want. Evan processed this with the straightforward logic of childhood. So I don't have to call you Nico anymore? I can call you Dad? Claire watched Nico's face crumple slightly before he got it under control. If you want to. Only if you want to. I want to. Evan threw his arms around Nico's neck. I always wanted a dad, and you're the best one. Nico held their son, tears streaming down his face, and Claire felt her own vision blur. This moment, this simple, perfect moment, was worth every fear she'd overcome to get here. Does this mean we're a real family now? Evan asked. We've always been a real family, Claire said. Now we're just being honest about it. The conversation continued over the next few days as Evan processed the information and came up with new questions. Why did Mom leave? Where did Nico go? Why didn't they tell him sooner? They answered everything as honestly as they could, keeping the explanation simple and age-appropriate. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Claire explained. Dad and I both made choices that hurt each other, so we had to spend time apart, learning and growing, but we never stopped loving each other, and we never stopped loving you. Even when you didn't know about me, Evan asked Nico. Even then, I loved the idea of you, the possibility of you, and when I met you for real, it was like finding a part of myself I didn't know was missing. Evan seemed satisfied with this. Within a week, Nico had become Dad, so naturally it was like he'd always been called that. And Claire watched her son flourish under the certainty of having two parents who loved him, who were present, who showed him every day what healthy love looked like. March brought unexpected warmth to Portland. Cherry blossoms bloomed early, painting the city in shades of pink and white. Claire started taking on bigger legal cases, building the career she'd always wanted. Nico expanded his investment firm, bringing her in as a consultant on several deals. They fell into rhythms that felt sustainable, work and parenting and therapy and date nights where they rediscovered each other without the weight of their history crushing them. One evening, Claire came home to find the house dark except for candles leading from the front door to the backyard. She followed them, heart pounding, and found Nico standing beside a table set for two, fairy lights strung through the trees, soft music playing. "What's this?" she asked. "A do-over." He pulled out her chair. "Our first date was at that pretentious restaurant where I spent the whole time trying to impress you with money and power. I want to try again." "Where's Evan?" "Sleep over at Mason's house. We have the whole evening." He sat across from her. "I made dinner myself. Fair warning, it might be terrible. I'm still learning to cook things more complicated than pancakes." But the meal was perfect. Simple pasta, fresh bread, a salad that was slightly overdressed but made with love. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing, and Claire realized this was what had been missing from their first relationship. This easy intimacy, this lack of performance. "I have something for you," Nico said as they finished dessert. "Nico, you don't need to keep... It's not what you think." He pulled out a small box and Claire's breath caught. "Before you panic, it's not an engagement ring. We agreed we're not ready for that." She opened the box to find a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant, 3 interconnected circles. "It represents the 3 of us," Nico explained, "separate but connected. Each whole on our own but stronger together." He took the necklace, moved behind her to clasp it. "I wanted you to have something that reminds you we're in this together, that you're not alone anymore." Claire touched the pendant, feeling its weight settle against her heart. "It's perfect. There's an inscription." He returned to his seat. "Read it." She turned the pendant over. In tiny script, "We choose each other." The tears came then, overwhelming and cathartic. Nico moved to hold her, and she clung to him, crying out 6 years of pain and fear and lonely nights. He held her through it all, whispering reassurances, and when she finally calmed, she felt lighter, unburdened. "I'm ready," she said. "For what?" "To stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. To stop protecting myself from something that's not going to happen." She pulled back to look at him. "I'm ready to be all in. No more hedging, no more escape plans. Just us, building this life together." "You're sure?" "Completely." He kissed her then, slow and deep, and she felt the last of her walls crumble. When they made love that night, it felt like a new beginning. Not the desperate passion of their youth, but something deeper, more sustainable, built on trust and respect and the daily choice to keep showing up. Summer arrived with long days and warm nights. Evan finished first grade with honors, already talking about what he wanted to be when he grew up. Paleontologist one day, astronaut the next, chef the day after that. They took a family vacation to the Oregon coast, building sandcastles and flying kites and being gloriously, mundanely normal. One evening, watching Evan chase waves while the sun set over the Pacific, Nico pulled Claire close. "I want to show you something when we get home," he said. "What kind of something?" "A surprise. A good one, I promise." The drive back to Portland felt longer than usual, Claire's curiosity building. When they finally pulled into the driveway, Nico led her to his office while Evan got ready for bed. "I've been working on something," he said, unlocking a drawer. "A project that started as therapy homework and became something more." He pulled out a leather-bound book and handed it to her. She opened it to find pages and pages of photographs. Not surveillance photos this time, but family moments. Evan's first day at Westmont, the three of them making cookies. Therapy sessions captured in candid shots, park visits, bedtime stories. Ordinary moments made extraordinary by the love shining through them. But it wasn't just photos. Between the images, Nico had written journal entries, letters, reflections on their journey. December 3rd, today Evan called me Dad for the first time without prompting. I had to leave the room to cry. Claire found me and just held me. Didn't say anything, just held me. This is what love feels like. January 15th, bad day. Wanted to handle a business dispute the old way. Called Dr. Marsh instead. She talked me down. Then Claire made me hot chocolate and let me vent. I'm learning that strength isn't suppressing emotion, it's having safe places to express it. February 28th. Volkov sentenced today. Thought I'd feel triumph. Instead, just relief. Claire held my hand through the whole thing. When it was over, she said she was proud of me. I'm still not sure I deserve that, but I'm trying to. April 10th, Evan's school play. He was a tree. The proudest tree in theatrical history. Claire cried. I cried. We're becoming the sappy parents we used to mock. I wouldn't change a thing. Claire read through tears, watching their story unfold through Nico's eyes. Seeing his growth, his struggles, his overwhelming love for their little family. The last entry was dated that morning, June 20th. We're at the beach. Claire doesn't know I've been working on this book. It's almost complete. Just one more thing to add. The most important thing. She turned the page and found a photograph of the three of them from earlier that day, laughing in the surf. Below it, in Nico's careful handwriting, "This is my family. Not the one I was born into or the one I destroyed through my own violence. The one I chose. The one that chose me back." Claire, if you're reading this, know that every page, every photo, every word, it's my promise. To keep choosing you, to keep doing the work, to be the man you and Evan deserve. I love you. I love him. I love this life we're building, and I will spend every day of my life proving I'm worthy of it. She closed the book carefully, too moved to speak. Nico watched her with anxious hope. Dr. Marsh suggested I create a visual reminder of why change matters, he said. Something I could look at when old patterns try to resurface. This is that reminder, but I want you to have it. Want you to know that I see us, really see what we've built. Claire set down the book and kissed him, poured all her love into it. When they broke apart, she was smiling through tears. I love you, she said. Not despite your past or because you've changed. I love all of you, the broken parts and the healed parts, and the parts still under construction. That's a lot of parts. I know. Lucky for you, I'm patient. She picked up the book again. This is the most beautiful gift anyone's ever given me. The house was worth more. This is worth everything. She traced the leather cover. Because it shows me who you are when no one's watching, shows me the work you're doing, the person you're becoming. They stood in his office, holding each other, while their son slept peacefully down the hall. And Claire thought about the note she'd written 6 years ago, about darkness and fear, and the impossible choice to leave, about how that choice had led them here, to this moment, this love, this second chance. Sometimes the bravest thing was running, and sometimes it was standing still and letting love find you again. Autumn came with its riot of color, Portland living up to its reputation for beautiful falls. On a crisp October morning, Nico woke Claire with coffee and a nervous smile. I need to ask you something, he said. That's a dangerous way to start a conversation. He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Claire's heart stopped. But when he opened it, instead of a ring, she found a key. It's to the office downtown, he explained, the one on the 14th floor with the view of the river. I had it renovated for you. Space for your legal practice, conference room for client meetings, everything you need to build the career you've always wanted. She stared at the key, overwhelmed. Nico, before you argue that it's too much, let me explain. You're brilliant. You've been hiding that brilliance doing piecemeal consulting work because you couldn't risk the exposure of a real practice. But you don't have to hide anymore. You can be Claire Donovan, attorney at law, or Claire Varga if you want, or any name you choose. But you can stop shrinking yourself to stay safe. This is about more than an office. It's about you reclaiming everything you gave up when you ran. Your career, your name, your future. He pressed the key into her palm. I can't give you back the 6 years you lost, but I can help you build the next 60. She looked at the key, feeling its weight. Her own practice, her own space, her name, whichever one she chose, on the door. I want to be Claire Varga, she said suddenly. You don't have to. I want to. Want to reclaim that name, take back what it means. She met his eyes. I was Claire Varga when I was powerless. Want to be Claire Varga now that I'm strong. Show the world, show myself that I'm not running anymore. Nico pulled her into his arms, and she felt him shaking. You're incredible. Do you know that? I'm learning. They visited the office that afternoon, Evan running through the empty rooms, declaring which one should be the dinosaur room, which one the spaceship room, completely missing the point, but making them laugh anyway. Claire stood at the window, looking out over the city she'd fled from and returned to, and felt something settle in her chest. She was home. Finally. Truly home. The holidays brought new traditions. Thanksgiving with just the three of them, cooking together and being grateful for second chances. Christmas with a tree Evan insisted on decorating entirely in dinosaur ornaments. New Year's Eve falling asleep on the couch at 9 p.m. because parenting a 7-year-old was exhausting in the best possible way. And through it all, the steady work of being a family. The therapy sessions that kept them honest. The hard conversations about boundaries and triggers and old wounds that still ached sometimes. The daily choice to love each other even when it was difficult. On Valentine's Day, a year and 3 months after that first coffee shop meeting, Nico took Claire back to that same coffee shop. They sat at the same table, drinking the same drinks, and he pulled out a letter. You wrote me a note 6 years ago, he said. 8 words that changed my life. I'd like to respond, if that's okay. She nodded, unable to speak. He read, Claire, you were right about everything. I was drowning in darkness and pulling you down with me. You saved yourself by leaving. In doing so, you saved me too. Gave me the wake-up call I needed to become someone worthy of you. I spent 3 years rebuilding myself. Then I spent 4 months proving it to you. But this last year? This has been about us building something new, not fixing what was broken, but creating something that never existed before. A partnership, a family, a love built on choice, not need. You said you couldn't raise a child in my darkness. Look at what we've built instead. A home full of light. Thank you for running. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for giving me the chance to love you the right way. I choose you, Claire, every day, for the rest of my life, if you'll have me. He set down the letter and pulled out another small box. This time it held a ring, simple, elegant, exactly her style. I'm not asking you to marry me right now, he said quickly, unless you want to, but I'm asking if you'll consider it. If you'll let me spend my life proving I'm worth the risk. Claire looked at the ring, then at the man offering it. The man who'd been a monster and a victim and now was simply human, flawed and trying, broken and healing. Hers. Yes, she said. Yes, you'll consider it, or yes, I'll marry you, you idiot. She was laughing and crying at the same time. Yes to all of it, the practice and the partnership and the future. Yes to choosing you every day. Yes to building this life together. He slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and she pulled him into a kiss that tasted like coffee and promise and new beginnings. They married in May, a small ceremony in the backyard of their home. Evan served as ring bearer, taking his job with utmost seriousness. Dr. Marsh officiated because who better than the woman who'd helped them rebuild? Agent Morrison attended, having become an unlikely friend. A handful of Nico's business associates who knew nothing of his past. Claire's small circle of colleagues from her new practice. No Varga family, no ghosts from the old life. Just the people who mattered in this new one. When Nico set his vows, promises about communication and therapy and choosing love every day, Claire thought about how far they'd come. From a broken marriage built on obsession to this partnership built on respect. From running scared to standing still. From darkness to light. "I choose you," Nico said, echoing the words engraved on her necklace. "Today and every day after." "I choose you too," Claire responded. "Not because I have to, because I want to." They sealed it with a kiss while Evan cheered and threw flower petals with more enthusiasm than accuracy, and Claire thought this was what happy looked like. Not perfect, not without scars, but real and hard-won and worth every risk. That night, after the guests had left and Evan was asleep, Claire found Nico in what used to be his office but was now their library. He'd built shelves that held both their books, mixed together so you couldn't tell where his collection ended and hers began. "I have something for you too," she said. "We agreed no gifts." "It's not a gift, it's a document." She handed him a manila folder. He opened it to find adoption papers. Legal documents making official what had been true in their hearts, that Evan was his son in every way that mattered. "You're already on his birth certificate," Claire explained. "We did DNA tests when this started. But I wanted the legal adoption too. Wanted it official that you chose to be his father. That it's not just biology, but intention." Nico read through the papers, tears streaming down his face. "When did you—" "Filed them last month. The judge approved them yesterday. You just need to sign." She handed him a pen. "Make it official that we're a family?" He signed with shaking hands, and she countersigned as witness. When it was done, he pulled her into his lap. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything. For running when you needed to. For coming back when I'd earned it. For giving me a second chance I didn't deserve. You earned it, Nico, every day. By choosing to change, by doing the work, by being brave enough to love us the right way. I'm still terrified sometimes. That I'll slip. That I'll hurt you. That I'll become my father. I know. I'm terrified too. That's what makes us human." She kissed his forehead. "But we face it together. We keep doing the therapy. Keep having the hard conversations. Keep choosing each other even when it's scary." "For how long?" "Forever. Or until we decide otherwise. But hopefully, forever." They sat in their library surrounded by books and the life they'd built, and Claire felt a peace so profound it almost hurt. This was what she'd been searching for all those years ago when she'd fallen in love with a dangerous man. Not the danger itself, but the depth of feeling underneath it. The intensity. The all-consuming love. She just needed him to learn how to love her without destroying her in the process. And he had. Years passed in the way they do when life is good, simultaneously too fast and perfectly timed. Evan grew from a 6-year-old who loved dinosaurs to a teenager interested in computer science and social justice. Claire's practice flourished, specializing in helping women navigate complex divorces and family law issues. Nico's investment firm became known for ethical investing and supporting businesses run by formerly incarcerated people trying to start over. They had hard days, moments when old patterns threatened to resurface. Times when Claire's trauma was triggered by something innocuous and she had to work through panic attacks. Times when Nico struggled with controlling impulses and had to excuse himself to call Dr. Marsh. But they faced it together, did the work, kept choosing each other. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Nico surprised Claire with a trip to the original coffee shop. They sat at their table, now marked with a small plaque reading "Reserved for the Vargas," courtesy of the owner who'd learned their story and found it romantic. 5 years, Nico said, plus the year before we married, plus the original 2 years before you left. That's 8 years total of us figuring this out. Worth every second, Claire said. Even the bad ones? Especially the bad ones. They taught us how to fight fair, how to repair, how to choose each other even when it's hard. She laced her fingers through his. I wouldn't trade any of it. Not even the 3 years we were apart? Not even those. Because they taught me I could survive without you. Which meant, when I came back, it was from strength, not need. He raised his coffee cup. To us. To choices. To building lives from the ashes of who we used to be. She clinked her cup against his. To us. Today and every day after. They left the coffee shop hand in hand, walking into whatever came next. Not perfect, not without scars, but whole, together, home. And in that moment, walking through Portland's streets with the man she'd run from and returned to, Claire thought about that note she'd written so long ago. 8 words that had changed everything. She'd been right. She couldn't raise a child in his darkness, but she could build a family in the light they'd created together. And that made all the difference.